Hi, and welcome to the Women Reinventing Midlife Summit. My name is Deb Johnstone, and like you, I'm in the second half of my life. I've been through 2 midlife transitions now, and that's why I want to show you how you can find new purpose, build confidence, feel vibrant, and thrive in the second half of your life. Today, I'm so excited to introduce to you Lucia Knight. Lucia is a midlife career satisfaction designer and researcher. She spent 20 years in corporate headhunting in the UK and Australia, and then gave it up. And I'm going to let her tell you why she gave it up. But what I will tell you is that she now runs her own career overhaul business called Midlife Unstuck, where she helps midlifers who feel stuck create work that is much more satisfying, fulfilling, and fun. Lucia, welcome. I'm so excited that you've been able to join us.
Me too, Deb. So lovely to see you. I'm excited to be here.
And you're over in the UK, right? You've got a beautiful Irish accent, but you're actually in the UK.
That's right. So I'm Northern Irish from the very, very north tip of Northern Ireland, but I haven't spent much time there since turning 18. So I came to the UK, went to Australia, back to the UK. And that's where I settled, just outside London.
Yeah, right. Right. And so big career, like 20 years in headhunting. So tell us a little bit about your transitional story and how all that happened, how you came to give it up and what for.
Sure. So I guess let me start in the middle. So I had a midlife career crisis in my early 40s. And my life before that, and my career before that, was lovely. You know, I started in a FTSE 250 business in the UK, and I moved up and got promoted and had nice cars and family and a nice house. But something happened around 40, 41, 42 that it just didn't feel right. I describe it as a kind of a fog descending on me, a really slow fog. So it wasn't an overnight, I'm in crisis mode. It was just this doesn't feel quite right. I wouldn't talk about it. It just didn't. I felt a bit bluer than I normally am. And I'm really, really upbeat, as you know. But things just didn't feel quite right. But I let them slip for probably a couple of years until I hit a tipping point when I just thought, I've got to do something. I can't keep thinking about this. And I think a lot of your audience and followers, etc., will understand that I'm stuck mode. I don't know where to go. I can just see this fog, but I can't see the direction out or where I might go, or even trickier, where the heck to start. So I ended up doing something that I do not recommend to clients. I ended up escaping, running for the hills, and signing up for a master's in psychology, which was just a lifelong interest, but I had no idea what it would involve. I had no idea how hard it would be going back to university. I didn't know that libraries were global and that I wouldn't touch a book in the years that I was there. And I got to the end of that, half of a human, trying to be a full-time mum, full-time student, 16 exams, 16 assignments, and was on my knees exhausted. And that's when I thought, hang on a minute, career change should not be this hard. And that's really where I started to research careers at midlife. So I'd read lots of books about changing career when you're younger, but they didn't help. They didn't help at all. So I knew that there would be some insights from individuals who've changed career at our age that would be very useful to me. But I didn't know anybody, not one person, who changed career and were happier for it. So I gave myself this ridiculous challenge to find 100 people who'd done it. And wow. Since I didn't know one, I had to go far and wide. Friends of friends of friends of friends, every network, on Facebook, everywhere. But I did find over a year, 100 people who had changed career after the age of 40, some 50 and probably 2 in their 60s who changed careers and described themselves as happier. But it was that start point. This has to be easier. I need a framework. And that's kind of what I'd love to share with you today.
Wow, that is amazing. You are definitely a researcher.
I
100
am.
people.
And it was really hard. And my friends laughed at me. They thought that's ridiculous. But I guess I needed the security of mind to know that not just a couple of people have done this, but lots of people. And to be fair, once I interviewed 10, I knew there were millions. I just knew it. And I continued on because I'd given myself that goal. And a publisher heard that I was writing these stories and publishing them on my website. And I ended up getting a publishing deal because of it.
Wow, that's incredible. That's awesome.
It was really cool.
Yeah.
And I didn't know where it was going, but before I did any of that, I knew one of the key insights from all of these 100 people is they ended up doing what they did very well and what they enjoyed. And that's what I call they had discovered their superpowers.
Superpowers. Yeah, right. Which is what you're going to talk about today.
Well, I guess that's the key.
Yeah.
So when I was in the fog, I knew I needed a framework to get out, but I didn't know where to start, like I said. And through understanding these interviews and the patterns behind it, I do have quite a scientific mind. So the reason I wanted to choose 100 was because I knew there were great stats behind that. Yeah, I could take percentages and go 50% of people did this, 30% of people did. And that's very me, sadly. But one of the 8 patterns that I discovered was that these people understood their superpower. So then I went on a journey to figure out, how do I find my superpowers? And could I help other people to do that?
Wow.
And so shall I tell you a little bit about how and yeah. So it became obvious to me in these interviews that the one part of every career that stays exactly the same, whether you're 40, 50, 60, 70 or 30, is that it's you. You are exactly the same person and you need to bring your skills. And so the superpowers, I call them the corner pieces of your happier work jigsaws. And typically there are 4 or 5 that are blindingly obvious. And they're obvious because when individuals, and their activities, I'm sure you've come across Strength Finder and all sorts of profiling tools, but these are actually actions or activities that when you do them, you feel it in your body somewhere. For me, when I use my superpowers, I feel it in my belly. Yeah. When you use your superpowers, you could do them all day and have more energy at the end of the day than the beginning of the day. When you use them, time flies. A lot of people call that flow. Yeah. So when you're in flow, and you can get paid an awful lot more with a lot less drain by using your superpowers. So they became one of the cornerstones of the work that I now do.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, wow. Yeah, I can understand why, you're going to be paid more because it's obviously something that you enjoy, something you're good at, and it doesn't take as much energy. In fact, it energizes you from the sound of it. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's really, really key because as we get older, we have to harness our energy in a different way. Do you agree?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. We don't have the energy to waste. And why do we really want to waste our energy anymore in this phase of life? We've been through that phase of life where we had to do things for necessity or money or hours that suit the family, or all of those different reasons that we do work that isn't necessarily something that's really lining us up. We've been through that. We don't want to do that anymore, do we?
Exactly. That's why it's absolutely critical. At this stage of life, we don't have time to waste.
No.
And we don't have energy to waste. So if there is a way to design the work that you do around some of your superpowers or all of your superpowers, every day, you're going to have loads of time and energy for other things in life, which, you know, we like expanding those in this phase of life as well, trying out new things, experimenting. Yeah. So that's why I think it's super important that everyone understands their superpowers, but particularly at midlife.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree with that. I agree with that for sure. So, okay, so what are superpowers?
So they are specifically the activities that, I mean, I encourage people to start to look for these superpowers simply by writing down on a piece of paper. I've got this really nice little format. You take a piece of A4 paper and you cut it into quartiles, and you figure out in the longest list you could possibly imagine on what you've been doing when people have complimented you. Yes. So that could be in work, out of work. I often find that superpowers exist everywhere. Yeah. So I find people use them in their parenting, in their friendships, in their work. So a superpower will never be something like doing Excel spreadsheets or leading people. It will not be something general. It will be something very specific. And often, although not always, individuals have been doing them since childhood. So let me give you an example of one of my superpowers. So I am one of very few people in my friendship group or family who hear someone is having emotional difficulty and I dive right in, get in the car, get over there and go, let's talk about it. Yeah. I could be in the supermarket and someone will tell me about the loss of a parent and we'll talk about it for 5 or 10 minutes. That's not something that everybody in the world does. And certainly in British culture, someone says, they've had a hard time, people shut down or they try to fix them. And I'm not a fixer. So that sometimes gives people, so I could point that in lots of different places. So I've done some bereavement training and love doing that. I've done some anxiety and depression training. The way I coach my children is around diving right into emotions. So you kind of get the feeling that I've been doing this since I'm a middle child. So I've been doing this since the sand pit. If one of my brothers was fighting with the other one, I'd be the one talking about it. You get the gist.
I totally get it. Yeah, I totally get it. It's really, if I think back through my work life, even when it's funny, even when I've held financial roles in business, right, in the past, I've been the one that people come to me if they want to approach the boss about something and they don't know how to approach the boss, or they've got a problem with someone else and they don't know how to handle it. Even though I was the one doing the numbers, it was me that came to.
Hi, interesting. That's it. So another question that people ask is, what can you not stop doing? What are you doing when you should be doing something else? So maybe you should have been doing the numbers, but here you are talking about problems and bosses and how to, work through difficult things because you couldn't stop doing that. Can I ask you a question? Yeah. So when you're doing that, and I guess the work that you do now is very that, isn't it?
It is.
So where do you feel it in your body?
I think I feel it in here, probably in here, and maybe even my solar plexus as well.
Yeah. And that's really natural, isn't it? You're doing something that's fulfilling and natural for you, and it's very centering. So for you, it's in the center. Rarely do I ever find people who feel it in their toes. It's kind of central.
Yeah.
I'm open to finding someone and there would be nothing wrong with that, but generally it is in that central area. Heart, gut.
It is.
Somewhere around there.
And sometimes when I'm coaching, I'll put my hand there because I can feel it there.
I feel it there. That's right. Oh, so perfect. Yeah. So I find lots of people, so that's another way to figure out a superpower, isn't it? So when something feels different in the body at work or at home, or you find yourself touching your stomach or it's connecting with you. And if you're doing something that feels good and it connects with you, that has to be in the work that you get paid to do.
That's incredible.
And it doesn't have to be. So typically in my one-to-one program, they're done for you, Discover Your Superpowers. Typically, I aim to find 4, if not 5 superpowers over 3 or 4 hours in a deep dive. But those superpowers, one of them might be used at the weekend. Yeah. One of them might be used in work in this scenario, another one in this scenario. And typically when I've been interviewing individuals and they have been using, they didn't use the language superpowers, that's the language I've come up with, but they would say the percentage of time that they do work that makes them feel good is 60 to 70%. That was the most common number. Yeah. And I asked all of my clients before we start, what percentage of time do you do? And it's always well below 50. I'm not sure if 50 is enough, but 50 is a lot better than some.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Wow. Less than 50%.
Less than 50% or 20, you know, some people have said 20. And I just think, what is left at the end of the day for the people that you love if you're only spending 20% of the 8, 10 or 12 hours of the day that you're working doing something that feels good or enjoyable or satisfying, you know? But it's totally changeable. It's totally changeable. You know, you can be stuck and you can move into all sorts of different places. But most people, I don't know if you find this, but most people want to move from stuck to the perfect idea. And because they can't find the perfect idea, they stay stuck.
Yeah.
And that's when most of my clients met me. They've been sitting there for a couple of years, and that's too long to waste. So I find that superpowers framework for your audience, if they're sitting there wondering what next with their career, it's a great way to move from stuck to a little less stuck. And that's all it promises. It's not going to tell you, you know, what the super problem you want to spend the rest of your career. It doesn't do that, but it moves you just a little bit through the fog. And that's why I think it's really valuable.
It is really valuable, because even when you move just a little bit through the fog, it expands your awareness. So you start to become aware of more things, and maybe even open you up to find, you know, another one of your superpowers. Or but when we're not exploring it at all, we're giving ourselves no opportunity to expand that awareness that we can actually see outside of that fog.
Totally. And when you know even one of your superpowers, you can then experiment with it. You can say, oh, I'm going to try and do that a different way, or I'm going to try and speak to my children in a different way, or I'm going to try and test this out with my friends. You know, but you just start to notice things. And that's when you get on the move, isn't it? That's when you start to try a little tiny thing that no one in the world would notice you're trying it, and see where it feels in your body. And then try something else. And then you're properly on the move. You may be meeting new people, doing things differently, but you're definitely on the move. And that's a wonderful place to be. And I remember being in the fog and it wasn't nice. And I remember being on the move and it was exceedingly different.
Yeah, it is. It's exciting. Even if you're just taking the one step, it's really exciting to get away from that stuck state.
That's right. Just leave it far behind. But you don't need to even step outside of your home to do it, you know? And it's not scary. You don't need to be desperately brave. You don't, you know, it's just a little move, but it's based upon some insight about you that I find when people understand a couple of their superpowers, they can change their current working environment. No matter how bad it is, they can make it better. And if you can make today better, well, the future looks very bright.
Yeah. That is interesting, isn't it? So it may not be that they need to change their career. It's just that they, you know, start to look for opportunities to use that superpower in what they're already doing. Yeah.
And again, that takes away all the fear, doesn't it? That you can start to evolve. And I think it is an evolution. It's not a radical change. I do not believe that any midlifer can make a leap of faith unless you have got a bucket of cash and a bucket of self-confidence. A leap of faith is not for any of us. But those little tiny changes to today's work or tomorrow's work, that's where the sort of lights come on and you can see other opportunities.
Yeah, for sure. And that may be to use it in the role you're already in. It may be to keep doing the role that you're in while you explore something else, you know, for a few hours a week, or
you know, if you've got this creative, and you know, they're different for everyone, but you might have this slightly latent creative superpower that you haven't used for some years because you got promoted and it's stressy and whatever, but you could put that into a weekend and feel the joy from that, and then it ricochets around everything else. You've done something that's in your superpowers, you've felt creative, and it leads you to different opportunities. So none of this needs to be scary. It should all be quite I was going to say the word joyful. Is it too early in the morning to say the word joyful? It should be pleasant. Let's go with pleasant.
It's not too early for joyful. I like joyful. I like joyful.
And you know, like you say, I think one of the most important messages about careers at our age is that we feel like we need to escape, but there's a different way to do it that isn't as scary and allows us to move a little bit away from stuck. And it's just tiny tweaks at the beginning. If you love the tweaks, you can do thousands of them, and that will be a big change, but just tiny tweaks make a big difference.
I think that's a theme that is playing out in a lot of the conversations I'm having. It's those tiny tweaks, those little steps, those tiny little changes that all build up to create a bigger change. And I think, especially in this phase of life, there can be a lot of fear, can't they, around creating change. So just doing those little tiny tweaks, it helps us build our confidence in, you know, what we're about to do, our self-belief, our belief that this is, you know, we see more and more evidence that we're on the right track. I know for me, I found that when I started to work more with midlife women, every single little tiny step that I took gave me more and more evidence that I was on the right track. And it gives you more motivation, helps you feel more confident. And so you keep taking the steps.
That's perfect. Absolutely perfect. So then your direction, you did some experiments and the direction, the evidence. So I get back to my scientific mind, the evidence came straight back to you going, this feels good. This feels right. So you took another little experiment and then you expanded and you know, before you even noticed it, you're in this very different place. And like you said, I love what you said there, you know, you just feel really reassured. It's a confidence enhancing method of making changes, not a scary leap of faith.
That's right. I love it. And I love that you check in with your body as well. How does this feel in my body? Because the body never lies. It never ever lies, does it?
It doesn't lie, but I think we become a little disconnected to it, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
So when you do a little experiment to come back and go, how did that feel? Even just taking out of your head and writing it down, how did that feel? The first time you do it, weird as anything, bit woo-woo, and I'm so far from woo-woo, but out of your head and onto a piece of paper means that the next experiment you can do can also get out of your head and onto a piece of paper. And it's very concrete.
It is. It's giving you the evidence. It just gives you the evidence that this is the right way. It's the right path. Yeah,
exactly. Which is why I call myself a career satisfaction designer. So I'm designing or helping people design through tiny little experiments. And that works for me. Not too scary.
Love it. Yeah, love it. You have an amazing free gift to share with our viewers, don't you, Lucia?
I do. It's called a superpower starter. So this is for someone who is a bit intimidated by the idea that they have superpowers. Most people I meet don't know they have superpowers, but this is a superpower starter. It includes 5 of the actual questions I use to get my clients thinking about where their superpowers might be, how they might find them, and how they feel when they use them. And it's a little booklet with spaces for answering. It could not be easier, and it's the perfect place to start.
That sounds fantastic. What an amazing free gift. Thank you.
I hope everyone enjoys it.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. And I encourage you to download it. So you can access Lucia's free gift on this page that you're watching the interview on now. There's a link underneath the video. Just click on the link to access Lucia's free gift. And you can also access it in the email that you received today, announcing Lucia's interview. So the email you received, if you just have a read through the email and click on the link in the email to access Lucia's free gift there. So there's a couple of places that you can access it, and I encourage you to do that. That's fantastic. It's a great way to get you started. Love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. You've shared some amazing insights, and just want to let you know this interview has gone by in a flash for me. So there's another insight.
Interviewing is your superpower, Deb.
Superpower.
Well, I want to say thank you because I feel very energized by our conversation. So thank you for pointing your superpower at me.
Awesome. That's brilliant. Thank you so much. Some fantastic insights.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for tuning in. I trust you've enjoyed this conversation as much as we have, and enjoyed in the fun, and really taken some takeaways from it, and some insights from it to help you with your career transition, or deciding on what it is that you want to do in this phase of life. I encourage you to implement too. So make sure you download that free gift and work on that as well. Keep tuning in for upcoming interviews. We have more incredible women like Lucia, all with expertise in their own field, talking on different aspects of midlife, health and wellness, mindset, menopause, sex and relationships, finance, and lots more. Lucia, thank you. Thank you so much.
It's my absolute pleasure. Thank you.